Hi, I'm Tiffany, this is Read by T-Rex, and here we read things. There's a whole genre of books, TVs, movies, audio dramas that's lasted for hundreds of years. Detective stories. If you weren't a child with unregulated internet access around the aughts, you may or may not be very well aware of manga. It's more popular in modern day than it ever was, with English audiences, at least. I can't speak to Japanese audiences as I'm not a Japanese audience member. But the basis of manga are that they are Japanese graphic novels, essentially. Manga and anime started to air and become available in the US around the 1960s, 1963, I think. Anime became more well-known in the 90s with things like Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, all of the classics. One of my favorites, Yu Yu Hakusho. That might be a little bit after the 90s, but I still love Yu Yu Hakusho. Into the aughts, you saw them air on programs like Toonami, late night shows. You would see anime. Some of them were great, some of them were not, some of them were Inuyasha, and they hold a very specific place in my heart. This is a very basic history. Obviously, there is a lot more to manga and anime coming into the States and the popularity of it and who the primary target audience was and who the primary target audience was even in Japan. But that's not what this video is about because I'm not a historian and it's not something that I'm really good at knowing and regurgitating. If you've never read any manga or watched any anime, chances are this video series may or may not really hit with you. If you have no interest in graphic novels and visual storytelling, then it may not be as interesting as some of the other videos I'm going to do. Personally, I have an intense love of long, drawn-out stories with multiple arcs, stories with endless antagonists, stories where character growth is the main focus, and the only way to do that is to just keep telling the story. I have found that in a lot of English-speaking countries, stories follow a very traditional 3-act structure. The beginning, or the inciting incident, the climax, or the middle, and the end, the conclusion. There's a lot of big lean towards happy endings, towards everything being tied up neatly in a bow, towards Hallmark movies, towards SVU where the bad guy's caught at the end, although there are some episodes that get a little, which I do prefer, but that's based on real-life court systems. I love happy endings. I don't want this to come off as I don't love happy endings. I don't love when a story ends in this really satisfying way. But I need it to feel earned. For me, it's not so much about the characters getting what they deserve and showing me why they deserve it. I need to know what it is about this person, this character, that means they get to be happy. Why? Generally speaking. To me, this means I want to see the characters fail and learn and grow. Many of the manga that I've read approach failing and learning and growing as a major aspect of the storytelling. The point is they do lose, and they do have to overcome, and they do have to train, and they do have to work. I love that. There's a few series, manga specifically, that are very well known for their length. Some are the more well-known series that are very popular in a little bit more of the mainstream way, such as Naruto and One Piece. One Piece, which is still going, for the record. Naruto has ended. Naruto the anime has ended. One Piece is still being published. That's amazing! Oda, the author of One Piece, has said a couple of times that, he gets burnout because he's been doing this for so long. He was also someone who was first published in the 90s and is still publishing to this day. Can you imagine doing that one specific thing for that many years? Of course he's burnt out. There's no other way to be. My personal favorite, very long-running manga is Case Closed. The first chapter of Case Closed was released on January 5th, 1994. The most recent chapter, chapter 1156, was released on December 24th, 2025. It is still ongoing. This manga has been going on for 30 years, for 31 years. This manga's older than I am. It's kind of insane and genuinely amazing. Case Closed is written and illustrated by Gosho Aoyama. As a fun fact about manga overall, it is important to make note of writers and illustrators, or writers and mangaka, because they may not be the same person. It may be that the story was written by one person and illustrated or drawn by another person. The other person is the mangaka. It's essentially manga writer, mangaka. So I will probably use that, as that is Aoyama's official title, is mangaka. Aoyama both writes and illustrates Case Closed, so there is only one person to credit in that aspect. There is just the one mangaka. Different fun fact. In most Asian cultures, people are referred to as their family name or their last name, their given name. So most of the time, I'll refer to the author as Aoyama, his family name, because it would be more respectful than if I was to just call him Gosho. It's walking up to someone you've never met and saying, "Hey, Dave, how are ya?" It's very familiar, and it's not the vibe. Case Closed has another title. In the US, it is called The Case Closed. The more accurate translation of the title is Detective Conan. Apparently, there were titling and copyright issues with the English title Detective Conan, so the title was changed to Case Closed. I did not realize this for a while, because as was mentioned in the intro, I was an unregulated child on the internet in the aughts. So I read a lot of manga pirated. It was pirating websites, it was fan translations, it was some stilted English that people did their best because it may not have been their first language, but it was not awesome all the time. So when I originally came across Case Closed, reading manga, on a pirating website that for sure gave my computer a virus or 6, it was called Detective Conan, because that is a more accurate translation. When I went to find the actual physical copy of the book to be able to support Aoyama, to be able to have those physical copies, I couldn't find it because I was looking for Detective Conan, and the official English translation is Case Closed. It took a long time. I gave up for a while, I came back to it, I found it, I was like, oh my god! And then they had alternate titles listed on one of the fan translation sites, and I was like, that's why I can't find it. It took a couple of years for me to find the English title. Once I did, I started reading it on one of my fan translation sites, on one of the translation sites that I for sure definitely don't use anymore. Because that's where it was easiest to access, and I didn't have money to just be spending on $9.99 per volume. There's 99 volumes of this manga. I didn't have the money, and the chapters are so easy to read that I was just blowing through them. Except a couple hundred chapters in, the translator changed, and the person who took over the translations did not speak English natively, so a lot of the translation became unintelligible. My field of study, my degree, is in linguistics. A popular thing that comes up in linguistics is translation versus interpretation. It's a really, really big concept that gets molded together because the average person doesn't really care. I say translation a lot. What I mean is interpretation. The genuine definition of a translation is you take a word and switch it from one language to the other. Take a word, switch it from one language to the other. Take a word, take and switch, take and switch, take and switch. The problem is that languages don't always have the same sentence structure. For example, if you look at English and Spanish, it's a pretty common correlation. A red car. That's the English verb. That's the English sentence structure. A red car. In Spanish, un carro rojo. A car red. So if you were to translate from one language to the other, you're getting some real funky sentences. And it's really easy to just throw it into Google and say, hey, give me what this means. And Google says, probably this. The other thing with languages like Japanese is it has multiple writing systems. Kanji, katakana, and hiragana. If you were to take those writing systems and mistranslate them because you translate something using katakana, but it was merely meant to be kanji, or it was meant to be hiragana and you translated it using katakana, you're gonna have some sentences that are just complete fucking nonsense. And that seems like that was what was happening with that fan translation site, and it didn't pick back up until a couple hundred chapters after that. There were hundreds of chapters where I was just like, I have no idea what the fuck is happening. Which made it unreadable. So then I started buying the actual manga. I have been buying the English works as Apple books, essentially, because that's what I have. I have a MacBook and I have an Apple iPhone, so it's easier for me to read across multiple devices because it all just shares the same information. I have no preference for Apple or Android. I do not care. It is just that is where my music was when I was 14 and got my first cell phone. Or, no, actually, I think 16 when I got my first iPhone. 16 and got my first iPhone it was on my iPod, and I could just transfer my music, and that was it. And that has been the motivation for the entire time I've had a cell phone, is I just wanted to be able to transfer my music. So I have the manga on Apple Books, which is it's Kindle Unlimited, but Apple, essentially. I don't know how much of that I'll keep. That was a lot of ranting. Point being, I found the manga. I found the English translation of the manga. Translation versus interpretation. That's where this rant started. So if you were to interpret, you are taking the meaning of a sentence and translating it. So you are taking what this is supposed to convey and moving this into another language. It is much more nuanced than just this word means this word means this word means this. So it's not the same thing. It's not. I will probably cut the rant. I promise I'm almost done with the general background information, but I do have a little more. Case closed, as you might have figured out by now, is Japanese in origin. That being said, the main characters had traditional Japanese names. Or traditionally Japanese names. Back when the manga was first being translated to English, there was a tendency to change names to be more English because it was easier to say. It's done. The most popular examples that I know of are this manga and Sailor Moon. Sailor Moon's name was not originally Serena. They changed it to be more English. Thankfully, this isn't really done anymore. I personally saw a shift around the time of Yu Yu Hakusho and Inuyasha where their names were kept with what their original translated names would have been. Inuyasha's name is Inuyasha, Kagome is kept as Kagome. We can talk about that a different time, actually. I really love Inuyasha, all things considered. Yu Yu Hakusho, same thing. Hiei, Kurama, they kept those original, Kuwabara even, they kept those just translated, the names as what they were originally. In the Japanese version, The titular character, the main character that we have our entire series named after in Japanese, not the English version where it's just case closed, Detective Conan, is named Shinichi Kudo originally. In the English version, his name is Jimmy, which I don't like. But that's where it is. That's what it is. And it's been 1,000-something chapters. They're not going to change it at this point. He's the titular character. He's the main person. One of the very often reoccurring characters is his love interest, his childhood best friend, karate badass, and my favorite character. Her name is Ran. In the English version, she is Rachel. I do not know why this change was made. Ran is not difficult to say. I got a lot of feelings, but we're going to move on. There's other character name changes that I'll probably point out as we go, but it's probably going to take me a while to adjust. I will probably say their names a lot, write their names a lot, because that is the only way I'm going to remember that we are now calling them Jimmy and Rachel for some stupid fucking reason. It is Shinichi and Ran. Whatever. In the translations that I read done by fans, the names are not changed unless the characters are misunderstood. So if someone writes their name in kanji and this one character can be read in multiple different ways, maybe their name is missaid or misread, but overall it is Shinichi, it is Ran, it is Detective Megure, it is not whatever the English equivalencies are. But we'll have to go over the English equivalencies because, like I said, it is 1,000 chapters, and that is what they are called. It's a pet peeve for me, as you can probably tell, but it's kind of a moot point by now. I'll acknowledge the name changes and point out what the original names were when and where I can, which is going to be a lot for me, but I'm okay with that. I would prefer everyone know what their original names were. I think it's very important. Finally, we have gotten to the point of the video where I give a summary of the series by memory alone. Only sort of having read some of it recently, which is not recently at all. I think it's been a couple of years since I've picked any of it up. So we'll be starting from chapter 1. Case Closed is a mystery/detective story. The main character is Jimmy Shinichi Kudo. Jimmy is a teenage detective prodigy. He's so well known that the police in his home prefecture use him as a consultant in police cases. He's a modern-day Japanese Sherlock Holmes. Kid's a genius. And he's a great soccer player. Through a series of events, Jimmy is turned into a little kid. Throughout the series, he has to pretend to be a little kid, solve cases, and try to solve the mystery of how to return to normal. I'd like to point out again that the first chapter was released in January of 1994. This is important because there's a hint of sci-fi in the series, in case you didn't get that from the fact that he was turned into a child. There's a hint of sci-fi throughout the series. Some of the sci-fi is pretty accurate to technology we have available today. So there's some things that seem a little bit like they wouldn't need to be sci-fi, and I'll point them out as we get to them, but given the context of the very first chapter aired in 1994, it's going to be relevant. For my very first deep dives, I'm tackling the Black Dagger Brotherhood, which is taking me a very long time because I actually don't like the characters in the first book. I think Beth and Wrath are terrible people. I don't like them. I don't care about their story. I'm getting through it. It's a process. Which is a series of novels about vampires, if you've never read it. Like I said, I don't really like the first characters. I don't like them. I don't like Beth. I don't like Wrath. I think they're stupid. I'm struggling. Send help. For Case Closed, the breakdown will be a little bit different. Part of that is because Case Closed is a detective series. It's a mystery. It's not a vampire romance novel. So the story structure, the story beats, and what you expect is different. Part of the reason it's different is because that Case Closed is a manga. It's not a written work. So the way the story is told, the story beats, what gets focused on is a little bit different than in a written novel. And Case Closed is episodic in its storytelling. There is a case, you begin, you introduce, you end. You begin, you introduce, you end. Think of it as the difference between a movie's storytelling and a TV series storytelling. That's kind of what we're tackling. So essentially, it tackles a mystery, usually over a few chapters at a time. It's not usually like 1-to-1, like a lot of TV episodes are. To go with that, there's also an overarching plot that carries throughout the series. What happened to Jimmy? Who are these people that did it? How does he go back to being a normal person? So the way that we have to dive into the stories is a little different. Instead of breaking it down by volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, I'll be breaking down each mystery individually. Chances are it might be more than one mystery per video. I'm not entirely sure. It depends on how long it takes me to script and record. We'll see. Case Closed mysteries are also packed with so much information. I just finished the script to the very first mystery, which is the first chapter, so it's the only one that's, I think, single chapter, and it took a long time to get through because there's just so much to say. The sections that I have written down that I might amend for my Case Closed videos are as follows. Section 1, what kind of mystery? What kind of mystery is this? What is happening here? What happened? What is the inciting incident? Section 2, the characters that are in the story. Broken down into a couple subsections. Section 2.1, characters that were introduced that are going to be reoccurring. Section 2.2, what changes to the names were made. Section 3 is going to be what happened, essentially a summary of the story itself, of the mystery of the case that we are solving. Section 4 is whodunit. Why? Pretty self-explanatory. Section 5 is going to be any details for the overarching plot that we have learned or carried through this mystery specifically. Section 6 is going to be about character development that I've noticed in this mystery specifically. Section 7 is questions that I have for what's going to happen next, any kind of lingering questions. And Section 8 will be the conclusion. The approach to these mysteries are going to be different, since a mystery is categorically different than a vampire romance novel. Episodic storytelling is different than novel storytelling. Either way, I'm looking forward to talking about another series that I absolutely love. I'm Tiffany, this is Read by T-Rex, and here we read things. A few fun facts for anybody who cares to watch like the little after video blurbs, little rants I'll probably do. When I originally wrote this script, the most recent chapter had come out in September 2024, just to give you an idea of how much I have procrastinated. A different fun fact, I changed the sections immediately after writing this script when I got to the first mystery. I changed it from Mystery 1 to Mystery 2, so that'll be kind of a work in progress. I may or may not add sections, we'll find out. I'll introduce them as we go along. One final little tidbit. I'm filming on my laptop camera. It is bright sunny daylight, so the camera quality is not terrible. But like if we have a cloudy day, or if I have to record at night, the camera quality is going to dip drastically. It is on my list of things, but it is not high on the list. So it may be some strange video quality for a little bit. Either way, Enjoy this breakdown!